Hey everybody, Erick Landon here, and today I'm making finally, after so much time, the top 10 I've been waiting for, and that is top 10 best Fire Emblem games. Because now I have officially every single North American release of the Fire Emblem titles, every single Fire Emblem in my possession. I am so proud of that. However, this top is going to include Japanese only titles that only came out here translated by fans. Every single Fire Emblem you can play it on emulators, just like I did. So if you want to give some of these games a chance, don't feel guilty because technically it's the only way to play them nowadays. Or maybe someday they're gonna make a remake or a port, or I don't know, whatever. In any case, this list is going to include every single Fire Emblem, no matter if it's Japan only or if it's North American or whatever. Okay, and well, I'm gonna have to exclude these two. These are great games. Like seriously, stop with the hatred. I just can't bear it, and I'm just kidding. And these are good games actually. Like really. They don't deserve all the hatred they have. They may be the weakest titles for the Fire Emblem series, but they're still great. In my opinion, there's not one single bad Fire Emblem. So, whatever. Let's start with my number 10. And that is Shadow Dragon. This is actually a remake of the very first Fire Emblem that came out for the Famicom, only in Japan. I haven't played that one, though from what I've seen in the videos, it's technically the same game but with different graphics and minor changes. If anybody has played the original, please be kind enough to share with us the differences between the two games in the comment section below. Now, this game is on number 10 because it received a lot of criticism when it came out, and I actually agree with most of what's been said. That the story is a little boring, and both the animations and the gameplay feel a little unappealing or uninspiring. However, leaving that aside, I still think it's a great game. Being a remake, it might have left a lot to be desired, but in my opinion, not that much. Like I said before, it's still awesome. Number 9, Fire Emblem Awakening for the 3DS. Despite being the title that saved the franchise from absolute obscurity, considering the previous entry Shadow Dragon failed to meet commercial expectations, and the sequel New Mystery of the Emblem didn't even make it outside Japan, this game is not as great as many people think. Sure, it brought millions of new fans to the franchise, which is awesome by the way, but in my opinion, it's slightly weak, at least in terms of story and some characters. Nevertheless, there are tons of fans of these games that love it passionately, and I respect that, considering it's still a great game that may not be close enough to a solid, coherent story as most of the previous titles of the franchise, but in terms of gameplay and everything else, it really stands out. Hell, I even love some of the characters, like Robin or Henry or Cordelia or Tharja, whom I know everybody hates but I love. Anyways, it's a good game. Number 8, Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. This is another remake, now for the second entry in this series, called Gaiden, that also came out for Famicom, only in Japan. I loved this game despite having one of the most screwed up RNG systems in the entire franchise. Seriously, I know there are worse, but this one also nailed it when characters with 90% hit miss very, very often. But I'm not here to complain. I'm here to praise all the positive aspects the game has. First, I love the fact that you control two different armies, which means two different parties, each with their own side of the story for the entire game. In terms of gameplay, it is almost identical to the original for the Famicom, but here they included the Dungeon Explorer, dungeon explorer with short encounters with enemies as if it was a common RPG. To be honest, that was awesome, so I think it's a pretty decent game. And next is New Mystery of the Emblem. I don't own this game, so no point in showing my face holding nothing. I really want to own it, even if it's a Japan-only game, because in my opinion, it's way better than the Shadow Dragon remake. Originally called Mystery of the Emblem and released for the Super Famicom, this remake also uses the same graphic motor for everything. It is a direct sequel of the first Fire Emblem, however, it was the third game to be released in the series. This Nintendo DS version is excellent, and the only difference with the original game is that here you can create an avatar, your own character, as the co-protagonist of Marth. It also included the 4 special maps of the BS Fire Emblem, a small game that was digital only for the Satellaview back in 1997. In terms of gameplay, it's greater than Shadow Dragon. I felt the story mode more solid and less tedious. So overall, it's just more fun. Next on the list we have Genealogy of the Holy War. Another game that wasn't released outside Japan, also for the Super Famicom. Only way to play this is on an emulator, because it's been fan translated to English for years. It is a wonderful game, another one with an exclusive mechanic that includes really long maps. It's as if it was combining several maps in a row. Also, there's 2 generations here. Parents first and offspring later, divided in 5 or 6 chapters each. Depending on which character you hooked up with who, the character from the second generation will be different. The story here is very solid. I think it's one of the best in the entire franchise. The gameplay, well, like I said, the maps are really long and that can be quite tiresome. Hopefully you can save whenever and wherever you want in emulators, so that helps a lot. Beautiful soundtrack, beautiful game that I hope one day gets remade with an English release. On number 5 we have Thracia 7076. I have a love-hate relationship with this game. I really liked it, but I also hated it. Watch my rage quit video that I will leave at the end for a full explanation on that matter. The thing is, Thracia is the hardest Fire Emblem I have ever played. The RNG is the worst in my opinion. It's totally screwed up and it can be very frustrating at times. However, it has a very solid story, maps that are dynamic, so dynamic that they force you to literally use all your brain power to beat them without anyone dying. And some of the characters are just totally awesome as units. To make a resume for my love-hate relationship, do you have someone in your life, I don't know, a friend, a boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister, whatever, that you keep arguing with and then reconciling over and over, but you're still together and you feel a strong bond after all the crap you went through? Well, that pretty much sums up my feelings for this game. It's awesome. On the 4th place we have the Sacred Stones for the Game Boy Advance. I recently made a series of reviews for the Game Boy Advance titles, including the Binding Blade, which I didn't include in this list simply because even though I beat it, that game had a lot of frustrating and tedious moments at some chapters. Still a great game though, but not as great as the Sacred Stones. I think this game is amazing and it could always be considered as the perfect Fire Emblem for a portable console. Except for one little detail that pissed off a lot of fans. Not me, of course. I want to emphasize that this detail didn't bother me at all, and I enjoyed the game thoroughly. It has one of the most memorable and well-developed stories in the entire franchise, but the little detail is that the game's too easy, especially thanks to the Tower of Valny, a place in which you can level up your characters to level 20. Still, and like I mentioned in my review of this game, that's no excuse to hate on it. The game can be pretty hard if you don't use the tower and just go beat it like any other Fire Emblem. Great game that I strongly recommend to pretty much anybody. On the 3rd place, my favorite Blazing Sword, also for the Game Boy Advance. it's actually the very first Fire Emblem that was localized outside Japan. Just like in the Sacred Stones, this game comes along with more than one route. In Sacred Stones, it was 2 routes and 2 protagonists, but at some early point they join up and become one. The same applies with the Blazing Sword, the prequel actually to the Binding Blade. Here, however, it's 3 routes, but they as well join up very early in the game. Nevertheless, I found that characteristic to be pretty excitable. So I must say that this is my favorite out of the 3 Game Boy Advance titles. On my review, I complain about the tutorials at the beginning of the game, seeing that they're too unnecessary, but leaving that aside, this might just be the best Fire Emblem ever, since it's challenging but balanced at the same time. It has a great story and a great soundtrack and great pretty much everything. However, this is not my favorite Fire Emblem of all time. Number 2, Radiant Dawn for the Wii. If this game's on second place, well, I think it's pretty obvious which one's gonna be on first. In any case, let's talk about it. There's something fabulous to me when it comes to different routes and different armies that happens quite often in Fire Emblem that keeps me addicted to them. Radiant Dawn offers the exact same thing as previous titles, but in here, the parties join up late in the game. That and also the story, the characters and the fluid gameplay are at fault for my devotion to it. This game may have been heavily criticized for many different reasons, but I don't give a damn. It met all my expectations when I finally played it and left me with a big satisfaction, more than previous titles in this list. So it's a great game that I totally recommend. And on a side note, the game's difficulty kind of got lost in translation when it was localized. It only offers you to play it in easy and normal mode, but in reality, easy means normal and normal means hard. Huh, what a mess, huh? In any case, totally recommend it. I love this game. And on number 1, Path of Radiance. This, in my opinion, is the best Fire Emblem ever, and obviously my personal favorite. Yeah, so it's my favorite of all time, like I said before, and the best. I know I said that about Blazing Sword, but man, Path of Radiance is just that awesome. I'm very fond of it, not only because it was the very first Fire Emblem I ever played in my life, but also because overall, gameplay, mechanics, graphics, character, story, everything felt so powerful, so brilliant, that I just became really addicted to it. I have beat this game so many times and I am still longing to play it even one more. I am aware of some of the problems, like, I don't know, the protagonist being allegedly too lacking in personality, or the lame voice acting it has, or whatever, but that didn't bother me at all. I think it's the game that has the greatest personality of all and should be played by any fan of this magnificent strategy series. Too bad it has recently become the most expensive Fire Emblem ever, being very rare and hard to find. But if you haven't played this game and see it one day for a decent price, get it. Totally worth your money. Okay guys, thank you for watching this video. As usual, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share this with your friends. And whether you agree with me or not, remember, it's my personal opinion. I am sure you have your own order, your own list, your own top 10 Fire Emblem games, whether you're a fan or not. So remember to respect every person's opinion in this world, even if their lists or their tops include these two guys, okay? Every single Fire Emblem out there is great. Every one of them. Thank you for watching. See you next time.